Well, welcome to the next instalment of Backboard Back Chat. I'm Risty.
And I'm Cutsy, it's episode 2.
Episode 2, as you saw, we did one last week and now it is on iTunes.
It's on we have a podcast show.
Okay.
So you could be listening to that right now on the podcast and not looking at our sexy faces.
I know you could be on the way to work, in the car with it blaring through the speakers.
So now guys, episodes of The Bounce Accounts, our two other shows that we're doing, Backboard Back Chat and TVGC Football Club, are available on iTunes, the podcast, and also on YouTube, so you can still look at us. But Brando, what are we covering today in this special edition?
Special edition of Aussies in the NBA. We were sitting at uni last week and we just saw that Joe Ingles had just signed a contract with the Clippers and we were like, hang on, we should do something about the Aussies in the NBA.
Brando,
8 players in the NBA that are Australian. That equals the most previously in terms of overall. I mean, 8 players before that in the NBA, and now we've got it in 1 year. It's amazing. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at each player and kind of break down what they do, how much they're earning, all that kind of stuff.
And what they bring to each of the teams, and how many minutes they actually think they're going to get. Because a lot of times when an NBA player or an Australian NBA player has come in, they haven't got many minutes. Mm-hmm. They've been sort of the bench guy, 5 minutes a game. That's what Paddy Mills was like in his first couple of years. But now a lot of them now are not starters, but the 6th or 7th man. Yep. So it's looking really good, and we've got a couple of great young players coming through.
Absolutely,
I mean, drafted this year, and then coming through in the next 2 years.
Next couple of years, we'll just make mention of a person called Thon Maker, I think his name is, and Ben Simmons, who are tipped to be high draft picks in the coming years. They're still in high school, I believe, so that they won't be in this edition really, but they will hopefully be in the next few years.
Yeah, both of those guys are extremely talented. Ben Simmons didn't make the World Cup team. Yeah. Many people thought he would, but who's our coach?
Andre Manos.
Didn't think he was ready yet. Still a 17-year-old to play against men. He has played against New Zealand in a couple of those across Tasman.
Very good.
Across
Tasman.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Games. So yes, but now moving on, Brando, we're going to go to the first guy, Dante Exum. He was the 5th pick for the Utah Jazz.
Mm-hmm. Last year in the draft. I mean, he's been compared by the ESPN analysis, I think they were, to a lot like Michael Jordan. I mean, that's
nothing to live up to.
Yeah, I reckon it's about like that, mate. I mean, Dante is a bit to live up there, but
he's very raw. So as a lot of you Aussie fans might have watched the World Cup, we could see he didn't start many minutes. Well, a lot of fans who don't follow the league or the NBA. He's the number 5 draft pick. Why isn't he starting? Why isn't he getting 25 points for Australia? We actually have probably players who are better than him at the moment in the Australian team, but the fact is his upside is so good.
Well, that's what they got drafted on, is purely his coachability and his raw talent. I mean, he put 2 years in the weight room behind him, and he's going to be a big boy. He's a point guard. Yeah. I think he's 6'6", 6'5", something like that.
6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan for a point guard.
That's scary.
It's ridiculous.
That's scary. His athleticism, and you could see in the World Cup, he got to the rack quite easily. It's just some of his finishing skills weren't quite there yet, but I mean, they will get better over time, and in a couple of years he'll be amazing.
I think what a lot of people have been saying is the fact that they already have Burke as their starting point guard at the Jazz at the moment. The problem with Exum is he's actually a pass-first point guard. He's not a scoring point guard. So the struggle is going to be how they fit both of those players. You'd think, why would the Jazz sign or draft Exum when they already have a point guard when he's not a shooting point guard? So, and Burke is also a pass-first guard. Yeah. So it's really interesting how they play those guys, because I think Exum probably shouldn't be starting in the NBA from the start. Probably need games and probably a season under his belt to just sort of get used to the league, get used to the physicality, but after that, I think we'll be seeing a superstar being born, and someone like they said could have gone number 1, but the fact is he's never played against men. So
that's right. I mean, he didn't go to college. He was straight out of high school. So I mean, in a sense, I think that was the right decision. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say you should go to college first, but I mean, if you go to college and blow your knee out in the first game that you play, you've blown.
He's going to be earning $3 million next year. So
just on his contract, I mean.
And the fact is he's already with Foot Locker. There's a massive deal with them already.
Massive deal.
So the fact is, obviously now only international players can't go to college. All American kids must go to college for at least one season. But he will then, could have blown his knee and stuff. So in the end, I think it's probably the best move. What do you see him doing this year, Brando, though?
I see him coming off the bench. I can see him starting some games. I think he'll start some games that are maybe the lesser importance of games, or if the Jazz are in a big hole,
Yeah.
they're going to say, right, we're going to change it up and we'll put him
I
on and we'll
don't
see what he can do.
I don't see them getting more than 25 wins anyway. So.
Yeah, but I mean that might be a good thing for him. I mean, if he'd gone say
Yeah, no
to
pressure.
Cleveland or somewhere like that, wouldn't have been ideal because he wouldn't have got many minutes. It might be ideal that he's at the Jazz and gets a lot of minutes. Gonna sneeze
Yeah,
there.
about to sneeze.
Yeah. But no, I see him having a good season, not a fantastic season, but I see him being a great player in the future.
Yeah, I reckon he could average around 15 to 18 minutes probably with games starting. Maybe have those breakout games where you could see him get 20 points. He gets hot. We saw in the international games he struggled really from 3-point range. But when he gets to the rack, and if he gets that confidence, I think he's one of those guys. I know myself when I play b-ball, the occasional times when you hit your first, it's any player in any sport. Yeah, when you any player in any sport, even tennis, when you get the first serve in, it's obviously better. But if he heats up, he'll be good, I think.
Absolutely.
But there'll be games where he could go 9 and 10, and just his action just looks. It's like he hasn't practiced it enough. I don't think enough. But when you look, obviously he hasn't played against adults, and it'd be like playing against me in high school. If he missed a couple of shots, no one would bat.
No.
So I think he's going to get through that rhythm again, and he'd be training now. I think every single day,
Oh, yeah.
8-9 hours to get that. Once we see his action gets perfect, I think he'll be an excellent player.
Absolutely. So we'll leave Dante there and we'll move on to the next player, Cameron Bairstow.
Yes.
Got drafted by the Chicago Bulls in the second round.
He was a New Mexico forward. He plays more power forward, but can play small
He does.
forward.
He's a pretty big boy, but I think I've watched some of his summer league highlights. He's just your basic basketball in a sense. I mean, not flashy, nothing like that. Just gets the job done,
No,
I think that's perfect for Chicago.
Puts in a shift. He's that guy that it sort of reminds me actually of a Draymond Green from Golden State in a way that he's an old-fashioned player. He doesn't want to be the guy who dunks the ball. He doesn't need to. He doesn't have to score. He can defend, get a point around the basket, hits an open shot. He's trustworthy, but the fact is he's not going to come out and score you 25 points or 20 points.
That's Bulls basketball in a sense. So Chicago basketball right there, and I think he will fit really well there. I mean, he's that big body. He'll work well. I mean, especially after they lost Boozer, I think they're going to have a big vacant spot there for a forward.
Well, I think if he can get a roll on, I think those first 10, 15 games will be key for him. Yeah. If he can show he's ready for the NBA, obviously by being drafted, they think he is, and he's that sort of guy playing international minutes. They would have liked that, the Bulls. They do like their international players. I know they've brought back another guy they've stashed over there for 2 or 3 years now. So I think in the end, he's going to be a very interesting pickup for them.
He becomes the 4th Aussie to be taken by the Bulls.
It's a question for you guys right now. It could be.
Can you name the 4 players?
Yes, there are 3 others, and we'll give you a clue. One of them's got LL as his name.
Yeah. Hey, he's a coach, you could say. Anyway, it's pretty good. What we saw in the World Cup was he can hit that mid-range shot. Yeah. He crashes the boards. Yeah. Lots of offensive boards. He's really crafty around the basket as well. It's not flashy, but as we said, I think that'll fit really well.
The guy will average 4 and 4, 4 points, 4 rebounds, about 12 minutes a game.
He's very strong as well.
I think he could be a guy, and I think this is what we're saying about Australian basketball all up. In a couple of years, maybe the next World Cup, these players will be hitting their mark. Yeah. And maybe even the one after. I know Bogut and Mills might be at the end of their careers by then. But I think we'll have some really good, solid players that we need 25 players to choose from that 12 guys to make a squad. Yeah. And we're going to have serious depth. Yeah. So I think that's great for them.
So we'll move on to the next one now. The big bogey man, Andrew Bogut at the Golden State Warriors, your team there.
Yes, my team, mate. He's probably one of only 5 or 6 centres in the NBA who would downright care about defence. He's a great defensive lock. The Warriors have been looking for a centre for 25 years. And we finally found him. The problem with Bogut is there's sort of a thing going around that he's injury prone.
He's had a horror run, you have to say.
And a lot of his injuries, we remember the just disgusting
the
one.
Elbow.
He dunks it and then falls.
That's just unlucky.
Breaks an ankle. That's nothing against him being an injury prone person. Some of the injuries since that have been due to that injury. So and the multiple injuries. He had 3 or 4 different things going on at that one time, and his body's just never come back from that. But when he is fit, and the Warriors,
he's unstoppable in a sense. I mean, he's so strong. Yeah. He's massive. He's 7 foot. His post moves are almost unstoppable. I mean, he puts an arm out. You're not going to block that.
Well, the fact is, he's actually a great passer too.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to a lot of, we talk about Australians in sport and why we have so many good soccer goalkeepers and stuff goes down the sides. when we're in the backyard as a kid, you're always throwing the ball, you're passing
Oh,
it,
yeah.
you're AFL handballing it, and Bogut has said he was a AFL fan as a kid. So handballing the ball, and that sort of hand-eye coordination is so good. Where I know Americans play rugby and American football and stuff, but he's such a good passer that him with David Lee, who's also an excellent passer, he opens up a lot of things for other Golden State Warriors players. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson can hit them. He's a player who probably ends up with nearly the most assists for a big man.
That's a threat. That's the threat that GWS, I'm going to say,
Golden
State, they pose. You know, they've got the hot shooting of Thompson and Curry, but then you've got the middlemen in the middle there of Lee and Bogut. If they're fit, that team's almost unstoppable on offensive end.
Well, I think in the end, the Warriors, and I think it was the ESPN guys on Bleacher Report or one of those, had said the Warriors actually have the best starting five on individual players in the league. If they're all fit, they should be the team to beat. It's obviously last year the bench for them was atrocious. We had no one. But if we come through with next season and we can have all these guys fit, it's going to be amazing. And I think we can see Australia lacked Bogut in the World Cup.
Absolutely, they just like that size.
Well, I think, and a player that you can lock down, and we lost that game. The guy scored 38 points. Against us, so in the end, Bogut would have been probably able to stop him, pull him down to about 20 points. But I think Bogut is one of those guys. He's fit. Golden State wins.
He's 29 though. I mean, he's. But then again, it's basketball.
Yeah.
We saw, Michael Jordan played till he's 40. But I know that's Michael Jordan. I'm just saying that basketball's not like AFL or those games where it's just so brutally, physically demanding that you can't play beyond 30.
No. I think the way that Bogut, he's still Australia's highest paid athlete, signing a 3-year deal worth $36 million US. The fact is, I think this will be his last payday due to the fact of his injuries. And then I could see him being someone though who could stick around in the league till he's 36, 37, 38, not chasing titles, but one of those sort of guys that comes on, he's good for 15 solid minutes as your backup centre, $2 or $3 million a year. That's a steal because he's someone that will bring you defence in times, lockdown, can score. He's a double machine if fit. Will get you 10 points.
It's like what Shaq did towards the end of his career. He just changed teams. I mean, he went from Cleveland to Miami, Cleveland, all of these players.
Rainbow Man.
He just went everywhere. I mean, we saw Zydrunas Ilgauskas do the same thing. It's what we hope Bogut can do.
It's that veteran presence around a team, and he's a leader.
He is.
What I think a lot, and they say
he can't be 7 foot really, not being some of these people look up to.
They said due to his injuries and stuff, though, he's always around the Warriors change rooms and stuff, always helping them out. But the next guy, Brando, we're going to move on to. It's one of our favourite players. It's a player.
I love him.
Very much like a Bairstow sort of a. He's a hard-working, and a lot of people say it's the Australian way of playing basketball over there in America. Matthew Dellavedova, Cleveland backup point guard now. Was at our boys St Mary's.
He did a fantastic job last year in his first year too. He was really the 3rd or 4th string point guard.
Well, he wasn't even guaranteed a spot on the 15-man roster until...
Towards the end of the season, he's backing up. He's the backup point guard and behind Kyrie. I mean, that in itself is an achievement.
I reckon we go back to the fact is he doesn't get drafted. When a lot of people have him as that sort of where Patty Mills got drafted, where Bairstow did. 50 to 60, it's a toss of a coin. At St Mary's, he was, what he got here, the all-time leader in games, 3 points, assists, scoring, and his number is retired. Patty Mills' number isn't even retired.
I mean, that in itself, how could you not get drafted off of that, off of those stats? That's what we saw. I mean, I think what they were saying is his shooting release was too slow. He was too slow around the ball. But, I mean, if you look at him now, he's changed everything. But in a sense, he hasn't at the same time. He still holds the ball up and he just waits and he generates an offense around him, and that's what makes him so good. He's so smart with the basketball in his hand, but he'll always put his body on the line for your team.
Well, he's a leader too, sort of like, it's not like he's teaching Kyrie in that sort of a way, but Kyrie being also a leader of that team, you got Delly in there who's basically run the Australian offense for a couple of years. The 2012 Olympics was our best player, one of the best. But his stats here, he played average 17.7 minutes a game, shooting just over 40%. 3-pointers at 37%. Was very good for a first-year player.
Absolutely.
But averaging 4.7 points per game. But if you probably put that down to the fact it's probably the first 30 or 40 games, he would have been averaging 5 minutes. And then he grew into that. So obviously it took Jarrett Jack but playing poorly and not fitting that system. But he took his opportunities.
He did. I mean, he didn't waste anything.
It was at Cleveland in Summer League. People had him around that sort of player getting picked. But like you said before, all those things were against him. And he got through it. And he's told everyone why he was good enough.
Absolutely. I mean, he pretty much he shut everyone up. He shut the haters up, and now I could see him. I could see him winning a ring with this Cleveland team. I mean, how lucky is that?
Well, I think he's a player that LeBron, I think, would really love and admire.
Pass first.
He's the guy who does the work.
Yep.
And I think it's an Australian style of way, and he deserves to be leading the Aussie offense.
Yep.
And if he does get a ring, that is awesome for Australian basketball, just like Paddy Mills. But we'll move on to another guy now.
Yep. He's Bainesy. He was the scorer of our FIBA World Cup campaign. He plays for San Antonio Spurs. Not many minutes there. There's a bit of a question mark hanging over whether or not he'll get another contract. I mean, but he couldn't have played any better in the World Cup to warrant another contract anywhere in the NBA.
I think he's one of those things where if he will be joining another NBA team, I think. Yeah. If he doesn't get picked up by Spurs, but he's a Spurs style of player.
He is.
He's a guy that you can trust.
Yep.
And that Popovich doesn't have to play him for 10 games, and then he'll start it. And I know that you've been sitting on the pine now for 10 games, not playing anything, and you'll get the job done.
I mean, he played 53 regular season games last year, and he played 14 playoff games. I mean, he was one of those players that Popovich could just say, maybe the minutes were last 30 seconds of the entire game. Yeah. That's all he played. But he would have taken that.
Yeah.
I mean...
Take it to win a ring.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw... I followed his progress through the European League before the NBA, and I mean, he was dominating in Europe. And then he came across... He made the right move to wait, I think. Yeah. And then he grew into some... He's massive. Yeah. His size, his chest is huge. I mean, everything about him is just... massive in terms of in the paint, everything like that, and his post moves, they're a little bit uncoordinated at times, but gets it done, gets the job done, and I love the fact that I saw him get really fiery within the World Cup. Yeah. I mean, he almost stormed out of the entire complex in a game that didn't even matter, and I think that shows the kind of character that he is. He just wants to win. And
I think the fact is, he's one of those guys that if he doesn't get picked up by Spurs again, he'll go somewhere else and give him 6 months like a Dellavedova and could be a starting power forward centre for them. I think in the way he's sort of the perfect, like we've been saying, he's a great backup guy. He'll probably never be the starter, like of a good side, but can come in and start for you in games that aren't as important. There's interest and do a job, but he's always happy to take the back seat. And he's sort of that guy, like Paddy Mills was for Portland at the start of his Spurs career. He's great on the bench. Yeah. He's a great team man. You can see how much it meant to him when they won the ring, did the tour of Australia with the trophy. So in the end, Bainesy is another great player.
He is, but his future will be determined in the next few weeks. So we're not sure where he'll
We'll keep you updated.
We will. Next up, we've got Brock Motum of the Utah Jazz. Bit of Aussie flavour there at the Jazz.
It is, but a lot of people don't know a lot about him, and we will fill you in right now.
I mean, he's 23, 208 centimetres.
Power forward from Washington State. Yep. He was part of the Aussie team at the FIBA World Cup.
Yep. He really made his mark in the Summer League. Yeah. I mean, he kind of came out of his box in a sense, and he proved to some people that he deserves to be in the NBA and get a contract there. He had trained, I believe, with the Philadelphia 76ers in 2003 and missed in the Summer League. 2013, sorry.
I was going to say how...
he's pretty old now, but no, he was 13. Yeah. He showed in the World Cup, once again, that he's one of those players with a lot of size, strong boy. Didn't get many minutes towards the end of the World Cup. I don't know what was happening there. I mean...
I think we just sort of got knocked out in that time where players really didn't have enough time to show what they wanted to do. Because it was round of 16, we thought we were going to go through probably 2 more rounds, get upset, might have been resting players a bit, I don't know. But the fact is, he's sort of like not a poor man's Baines, but he'll be looking to show that he can be that sort of round there. First thing will be making the 12 and not having to then move to the D-League teams. Because obviously 15 players get rostered and then only 12 can be on the match day squads. Obviously there's injuries and stuff, and then when you go on away trips you only have 10. So the first thing for him will be making those 12 that doesn't get pushed off to a D-League. But I think if he does go to a D-League team, he'd be good enough to be one of the best players there to show them that he would warrant being called up too.
So we'll move on to the last one now.
You actually missed the main man before that, Risty.
Did I?
Yeah, we've still got Paddy Mills to talk about.
Oh yeah. No, he was last.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Joe Ingles first and then Paddy. Yeah. But Joe Ingles, I mean, he really, in a sense, proved to everyone that he was ready for the NBA in this World Cup. He was unstoppable in a sense. His length, his range, everything about his game was just unbelievable, especially against Lithuania. His field goal percentage was above 60%, which is amazing. But I mean, I think he just signed a contract with the Clippers worth $875,000 US,
and it's fully guaranteed. What for a lot of people don't know, a lot of those contracts are actually only 3 months guaranteed, with a view of then going to the 6 months and then going to the full year. So the fact that he's got a full contract for a year means it's looking like he's going to be on that 12-man roster.
Yeah. He stands at 203 centimetres, so he's good size. He's lengthy though. I mean, he's pretty nimble and lean. He played in the NBL with the South Dragons back in the day, but I believe that year he won Rookie of the Year. In his first game, he had 29 points or something ridiculous, and that was the highest ever by an NBL starter, rookie starter, that is. But I think he waited long enough. He's 26 now.
Well, the thing is, he's been trying out for a number of years now at Summer League.
Yeah.
He's gone over. He's played for the Warriors twice, I think it is, and another team. I'm not 100% sure who they were. But he's gone out. He's tried a number of times now to make it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those times he might have been very close.
Yeah.
He played well in I think it was 2012 Warriors Summer League. But in the end, we went for, I think it was Kent Bazemore and Draymond Green those years, and those players have been good players in the league. But I think now it's finally his time to show what he can do. He has played it for Barcelona in Spain.
Yep.
Was one of the biggest teams in the EuroLeague.
Yep.
And he was starting for them, getting a lot of minutes. And then he moved to, was it Tel Aviv in Israel? He was with them. So I think in the end he's fine. He's done his dues now.
Yeah, he waited long enough.
He waited long enough to go into Europe. Now he's ready. He's more mature probably as a player, and I think, like you said before, that World Cup showed he was ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So, congratulations, Joe. He's Adelaide boy, South Australian. Amazing. I can't believe the 36 has passed on him back in the day. But hopefully, when he finishes his career towards the end, we might get him back. You know, the last couple of years, 36 is him and maybe Brad Newley together. You know, Paddy Mills as well. Just get a bit of NBA flavour in Adelaide. But we'll move on to Paddy Mills now. The last one. Pretty much, you could say at the moment, the biggest Australian basketballer in the world.
Quite definitely. He's probably the most known anyway too, from the general public, obviously.
Purely because of that that playoff series that he had.
The guy we have to give probably the biggest credit to out of anyone, nearly in Australian sport overseas. He's gone leaps and bounds as a player, obviously with a lot of talent. He was so good for St Mary's, but now he's finally hit his strides in the league. He was 56th draft pick, and it looked like he wasn't going to get picked up.
There's so many guards in the league that it'd be so hard to make it as a small point guard.
He is on the small side, small too. He's 6 foot straight, and he's pushing 6 foot.
Yeah.
With good thick shoes and probably 4 pairs of socks on. But he's sort of that guy that, again, we talk about Aussies, he's hardworking, but he's got that sort of flair compared to Dellavedova. Yeah. He's got that ability to just turn on a game.
Catch and shoot.
And he can just go, guys, I got this.
Yeah.
That's
what we saw. We hit three threes in like a minute.
It was the Paddy Mills shot.
It was, and that's what they were saying. And it was so good to
Number one
hear.
trending thing on Twitter.
It was fantastic to hear the commentators recognising his Australian heritage and his Indigenous background and everything like that. It was just fantastic to hear that stuff. But he did have shoulder surgery. Yeah. It was believed that he wasn't going to be at the Spurs anymore as of last year. Yeah. The last season. But there was ideas that he was going to go to the Knicks.
Yeah.
But he did have shoulder surgery, which kind of dropped his value a bit. Yeah. But he did end up signing a 3-year deal, I believe, with the Spurs again, worth 12 mil.
Yeah.
Which is still a lot of money.
Well, he's the guy that I think he epitomises Spurs basketball.
Yeah.
He's worked really hard, and the Spurs coaching staff, obviously they have a lot of internationals come through in the coaching staff and as players, because they go, let's go find the best players from these other countries, and we'll make them work.
Absolutely.
They will play good enough for us, and they obviously their whole team is basically not American.
Yeah, well, they don't waste it. They're so privileged. They feel so privileged to be in this scenario, in this situation, that they're not going to throw it away.
No.
Paddy Mills isn't going to throw this opportunity away, and he showed that. I mean, at Portland, he was a good player. I mean, when he came on, he had a couple of 12-point games, maybe a 20-point game. And then as soon as he went to the Spurs, I think Popovich really helped him out.
Well, I think he went to a point where obviously, not last season, season before, he was overweight.
Yep.
He had hair. This is what he was saying. His story was he was overweight, and he was the 3rd and 4th choice point guard.
Yep.
And then he decided last season, I'm going to lose the weight, shave my head, I'm going to be a new person. Ooh. And he came out, and when he started games, because obviously Tony Parker can't really play back-to-back, or he can't play 3 games in 5 days. So Paddy would start. And there was games where you'd turn obviously on the TV, and it's Australian time, and the game's finished, and you'd be like, Paddy Mills scores 27, Paddy Mills scores 26, scores 20. He had games where he was in control.
Yeah.
And that's against good NBA point guards. And a lot of people said he is the best backup point guard in the league now.
Yeah.
And he's a player that deserves to beat a team and be starting, but he probably doesn't want to go down to, no offence to the Utah Jazz or one of those teams and be like, just fight it out.
Run the show.
Yeah, run the show. He's better off actually probably being the backup point guard, knowing that, and going to one of the big teams and going, I got this, guys.
I mean, how fantastic would it be to be learning off Tony Parker? One of the premier point guards that the NBA's seen. Yeah. I mean, he's so silky with his skills.
As a player who's undersized also.
Absolutely, and I mean, I don't know how old Parker is, but maybe one day Paddy will take over from Parker in the latter years of his career and be the starting point guard, but who knows? I mean, even if he comes back to Australia or goes to Europe, he's left his mark on the NBA in a sense, and he's put Australia on the NBA map once again after Luke Longley. Yeah. I don't think we had really anyone since Bogut maybe getting drafted at number 1, but yeah, it's great to see Paddy Mills really getting some recognition for all the hard work that he did.
Well, we all know him, and the fact that he's such a laughter sort of guy. He's so funny on the side. He's now finally gone from being the towel waver. Yeah. Even though if you want to watch something hilarious, go to the Spurs Facebook or just type in Paddy Mills towel waving. The different ways to wave a towel, he's just hilarious. But I could see him being a guy that any team would want.
Oh, absolutely.
Any team would take him with the fact that he G's up the guys.
Yep.
He's like the Kent
crowd.
Yeah, Kent Bazemore sort of took his league role as because he didn't start games. Kent Bazemore never played, but then he started towel waving. Paddy Mills started that sort of revolution in the NBA, and I have to say,
got the 3 goggles.
3 goggles. I have to say, 5 years ago, crowd involvement was not as high in the NBA, and now these sort of guys have come in and sort of really helped out the league in that way.
So I mean, it's great to see so many Aussies really
in the NBA.
Doing a great job in the NBA. I mean, even if a couple of them don't make it, they still can say that they got drafted to the NBA.
Yeah, and that's
fantastic.
They were played in a team, but I think for me in Australian basketball, this is for all fans, is that by having 8 players now in the NBA and then having a lot of other ones in Europe playing at quality teams in the Euro Leagues, that we can finally have a squad of 16 to 20 players to pick from when we head to a World Cup.
Yep.
And we obviously, the NBL is a great league to pick guys when we have to play New Zealand and other stuff, that with a mix of European flavour and some of these other NBA guys. But if we can have 25 guys, not all of them from the NBA, but with quality basketball players, Australian basketball will be the 2nd or 3rd, 4th best in the world.
Well, what's great about it is also the fact that by having so many Aussies in the NBA, clubs are now going to look to Australia for more talent, and that's great for me and you, Cutsy, especially when you put on some height and I put on some muscle.
Well, once I go, guys, I'm still going to.
We might get drafted by the Cavs.
I still reckon I've got a good 2 or 3 inches or feet left in me. But I'm still trying to stretch, guys. But
it's great to see, and we love Aussie basketball. So that's the Aussies in the NBA special that we've done there.
From Backboard Bat Chat. So guys, remember, please like, subscribe, check us out on Facebook. We have a lot of good stuff once the NBA season's coming out. We'll be daily reviews and stuff. So yeah, we'll catch you guys soon.